It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome aboard. I hope the Christmas season is treating you well. We're going to start off with some news about the Show Me state of Missouri. They are showing outdoors enthusiasts why their state is one of the best fishing and hunting destinations in the U.S. The state is winding up their first elk hunt on Sunday, and as of midweek, 3 of the 5 people who drew tags for this historic hunt had tagged out on 5x5 bulls. Elk were actually exterminated in Missouri in the late 1800s, a victim of unregulated hunting. But between 2011 and 2013, the Missouri Department of Conservation and a number of partner agencies, to include the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, relocated 100 elk to the Missouri Ozarks, and their numbers have been growing steadily ever since then. So well, in fact, that we are now seeing hunters in the field after elk again for the first time in over 120 years. A tip of the hat goes to Alan Horntager Morris from Missouri for bringing this news item about this hunt to my attention. In addition to a first ever elk hunt, the Missouri Department of Conservation is poised to have their first ever black bear hunt too next fall. This comes after the State Conservation Commission gave the agency permission to do just this. Black bear numbers have been on the rise for decades in Missouri. The current population is estimated to be between 540 to 840 black bears, and biologists think that number can double in the next 10 years. With that in mind, Missouri is looking at a very limited fall black bear season in the southern part of the state that will only be open to Missouri residents, something that ought to make some of our listeners in Springfield, Waynesville, Farmington, and Lebanon, Missouri very happy. This portion of the show is brought to you by Henry Repeating Arms, and it's not too late to put a Henry lever-action rifle or shotgun under the tree for Christmas. All of these firearms are made in America. There are actually over 200 models. They came out with a whole bunch of new ones just for the holiday season. They are rugged, reliable, and accurate right out of the box, and they are absolutely beautiful to look at, too. Get yourself a .22 for plinking, maybe a shotgun for birds and small game, a Cowboy Classic caliber, or even a deer rifle, the kind I'm hoping Santa's going to give to me this year. No matter what Henry you choose, you will be happy to know they have a lifetime satisfaction guarantee, and if you want a free catalog, gift guide, and some decals, too, just go to henryusa.com and ask for one. Doesn't cost you a thing. Better still, talk to the award-winning customer service staff through the phone number you'll find at henryusa.com and let them help you put a Henry under the tree this holiday season. But hurry, Christmas is coming up on Friday. Turning to this week's show lineup, we've got a good one for you. And unlike some shows, which are already on Christmas break with reruns and guest hosts, we are plowing full speed ahead with fresh content for you from yours truly. One guest you'll hear from today is Ron Spomer, one of the most famous hunting personalities in America who has made a living out of writing articles, shooting great photos, and hosting television shows. We are going to catch up with Ron because he's been busy over the last few months, doing everything from hunting pheasant and deer in the Great Plains to stalking deer in a California vineyard. If you're into quail hunting, you won't want to miss our conversation with Chad Love. He's the editor of the Quail Forever Journal, and he's going to give you his take about the best states to hunt this season when it comes to bobwhite, gambles, and California valley quail. Chad will also tell you a little bit about the Quail Forever Journal and about Quail Forever, a conservation organization doing some very good work to help these fine little game birds across the United States. Speaking of conservation, we also want to tell you about another big win on the conservation front that affects 2 states in particular. Those states, California and Alaska. It's all related to the DriftNet Modernization Act, a bill passed by both the House and the Senate that's now on the president's desk awaiting his signature to become law. The bill will remove drift gill nets off the California coast. These nets, which can be a mile long, kill not only the swordfish they are supposed to catch, but also all sorts of other game fish and other species too, like sea turtles that they're not supposed to catch. As for Alaska, a provision in this bill allows commercial halibut fishermen to sell some of their quota to the charter fleet, which means you, as an angler fishing with a charter, maybe out of a lodge in Alaska, will get the opportunity to catch more halibut to bring home to the lower 48 states. Put it all together, and we've got a show full of all sorts of Christmas cheer coming at you as we approach Christmas Day this week. Now, I know it's pretty cold out where a lot of you are listening today, and that's why a trip to the Gulf Coast to go fishing this winter sounds pretty good to me right now, and probably to you too. Our first guest today is Captain Greg Varum. He's the man behind Fishing Galveston TX, located in Galveston, Texas, and offering some great fishing trips around the Gulf Coast there. Captain, how has fishing been this month?
Man, I tell you, December is just a month of ups and downs. Each cool front that passes, we get a water temperature variation, 10 degrees. Last week I started my trips at 54 degrees, and by Saturday we were up to 63 water temp. So you just never know. You got to adapt quick. If you don't like the weather in Texas, hey, just hang on a minute. It's going to change.
Well, that certainly makes it a lot more difficult. When the weather is cooperating, what are you targeting this time of year?
Man, John, this time of year, redfish is a great targeted fish, and speckled trout. This time of year, the flounder run is going on as well, so December is a great month for that. Up in the back lakes and marshes of our bays here in Galveston, we fish. A lot of live bait fishing is what we use, but depending on our clients, more advanced if they want to get out and wade fish. That's our preferred method, but a lot of times our skill level, we take a lot of kids fishing and stuff like that, so we stay in the boat most of the time, throw live shrimp under a popping cork or live mullet, fish along the bottom.
And I'm guessing when you're doing that, you're primarily targeting those flounder?
Yeah, we target the flounder, Carolina rig with a live mullet on the bottom. And this time of year is when, with each passing front, we'll get another wave of flounder moving out into the Gulf. This is their time to be spawning. So it kind of starts, depending on when we start getting our first cold fronts, about mid-October, it'll start getting hot and heavy. And each passing cool front, another wave of fish will move through out of our bays into the Gulf. And we target those in the channels, the funnels per se, of the passes from the bay to the Gulf. So that's where they migrate through. So they're stacked up in there.
When it comes to Gulf Coast fishing, the speckled trout and the redfish, they get all the press, they get all the photos, they're beautiful fish. But flounder, they're fun. I don't care what anyone says. I like catching flounder. How big do they get down there?
Man, we have caught them up to 9 pounds. And we also get them too, so at night. Which is a great thing to do. This is our peak season for flounder gigging. It's done at night. I have a boat with lights on the front, and we just put an air fan on the back, and it pushes us through the shallow flats. And it's kind of a combination of hunting and fishing rolled into one. So it's really neat to see all the stuff on the bay floor.
Oh, this sounds like a ton of fun. As we roll into January, what's going to change, or is this going to be basically the same drill through the winter months?
Through the winter months, the big flounder will have already moved out into the Gulf. We'll still be catching some flounder, the males, and some of the females that stay in. But another great fish that we target January, February, and March, and it's starting to really catch on in Texas. It's been a big deal in Florida, but we call them bay snapper, aka sheepshead. They start moving up into the jetty rocks and structure, and they're a great fighting fish and a great eating fish for those that want to eat their catch. So it's a great fillet, and we target those a lot all the way through spring break.
Greg, you're giving a lot of our listeners and myself a lot of reasons to want to come down and fish with you in Galveston, Texas. Let's give out the website before we go.
The website is www.fishinggalvestontx.com.
That's fishinggalvestontx.com. That's Captain Greg Varum you just heard from. He's got a whole crew of great charter boat captains that'll take you fishing, whether you want to go after flounder or speckled trout or redfish, or maybe in the new year, some other species as well. The website, one more time, fishinggalvestontx.com. Captain Greg, thanks so much for the information. I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a great 2021.
Hey, you bet, John. Thank you.
The Dalles in Oregon is your base camp for fishing fun. Reel in big salmon, tangle with steelhead, bass, and walleye, or wrestle a monster sturgeon to the boat. After the day is done, you'll find a variety of lodging options around town. Need to resupply? We've got you covered with sporting goods stores plus great dining, breweries, wineries, and can't-miss attractions like the Gorge Discovery Center. Plan your fishing getaway today at ExploreTheDalles.com. That's ExploreTheDalles.com.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
Hunting and fishing are exercises in hope. Before you head into the woods, you hope to tag out on a deer you'll have to field dress. Before you make that first cast, you hope for a big fish to clean and fillet. When your hopes are realized, you'll need a sharp knife. Whether you sharpen that blade on a power sharpener in the shop or a manual sharpener in the field, WorkSharp has the tool for you. Look for WorkSharp products in sporting goods stores near you or online at WorkSharpTools.com.
This is the time of year to get out and cook out. So make your next meal sizzle with Camp Chef, the brand known for quality outdoor cooking. From camp stoves to cast iron, from smokers to grills, Camp Chef will change the way you cook outdoors. To eat like a king on your next adventure, go to CampChef.com or visit your local sporting goods store and get cooking. Whether you're serving breakfast in the backcountry or barbecue on the back patio, savor the simplicity with Camp Chef. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is the voice for your public lands, waters, and wildlife. From the Canadian Yukon to the Florida Everglades, we're stepping up to conserve North America's public lands, defend our hunting and fishing traditions, and expand access to the outdoors. Find out how you can get involved at backcountryhunters.org.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. Let's talk a little quail hunting. And the person we're going to talk with is Chad Love. He's the editor of the Quail Forever Journal. And if you're wondering what the best states are for hunting quail this year, I think Chad's got the answer. Chad, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Chad, understand you just got out on a quail trip yourself in your home state of Oklahoma. How'd it go?
Not too terribly bad. This was the first time that I was able to get out and hunt since the season started. A wildlife management area here close to my house, and I ended up shooting 3 quail and got some decent dog work. It's been pretty tough in Oklahoma this year, so I was pretty proud to get what I got, but I had a good time doing it, and so enjoyed myself.
I get it. My last quail trip, I got a grand total of 1 California Valley quail. That's all we got. We only flushed 5 the whole day. So I understand how it's not always easy, but let's talk about some of the states where it is a little easier. If you were to name one state for bobwhite quail this season that you really ought to hunt because the populations are good, where would it be?
I think probably my answer to that, and I'll probably have some quail hunters here in Oklahoma get mad at me, but probably Kansas would be my pick for the state to visit if you really wanted to shoot some bobwhites this year for a couple of reasons. One, they had a pretty good hatch this year. The conditions, carryover conditions, habitat conditions in Kansas were pretty good coming into this year, and the survey numbers were up this year. And that combined with the fact that Kansas has a fantastic walk-in hunting access program called WEHA, Walk-In Hunting Access. And so you have a ton of opportunity combined with pretty good quail numbers this year. And so that would probably make Kansas my top pick for bobwhite quail.
No, it sounds like a great pick to me. Now, when I think of bobwhite quail, I immediately think not of the Midwest, but of the South. And for our listeners tuning in from our southern states today, where should they go for a good shot at quail?
That's a little bit harder to answer, but of course, the bobwhite quail is traditionally considered a southeastern bird, and there are some regions in the southeast that still have good quail numbers. The Red Hills region of northern Florida and Georgia is one that comes to mind. Of course, the problem that you run into with
in the southeast is not as much public land access to quail hunting.
Right.
But there are some areas, specifically in South Carolina, some national forest land that Quail Forever's been doing some habitat work on that do hold pretty decent numbers of birds. There's some national forests in Alabama, actually, that have quail hunting opportunities. And in Arkansas as well, there are a number of public hunting opportunities where you can probably find some quail. So I don't know if I could limit it to just one specific state, but those are some possibilities for southeastern quail hunters looking for some birds.
Okay, that's more than fair. Let's head to the Southwest. And the great thing about the Southwest is that the seasons extend well into 2021, so you got plenty of time to go soak up some sunshine, go after some of those Gambel's quail and some of the other desert quail species. What would you recommend for a state that you really ought to hunt this winter?
For Gambel's quail, I think Arizona is probably the state to be this year for Gambel's quail. They had a really wet spring again this year, and bird numbers are up considerably. And everything that I've seen from Arizona this year is indicating that they're having a really good Gambel's year. Now, the other two species in Arizona, scaled quail and Merns, probably not doing quite as well. But if I was looking for Gambel's quail, I think Arizona would probably be the destination that I would choose for not only for numbers of birds, but again, Arizona is a state that is largely public land, and so you're not going to have any trouble at all finding places to hunt.
All right. Last but definitely not least, my favorite quail, because it's the one I hunt here in the western U.S., the California Valley quail, also known as just the Valley quail. What do you think is the best state when it comes to hunting that, not just in terms of numbers, but also public access?
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I have actually not hunted valley quail yet. They're on my list of birds that I really want to experience. But I've talked to a number of people this year who have. And I tell you, I think California is probably sort of the destination state for that. For a number of reasons. It's got a lot of public land, and it's a gigantic state. So you have a lot of public land in close proximity to population centers, so the access is there. And of course, you have 3 different species of quail that you can hunt: mountain quail, Gambel's, and valley quail. And for valley quail, the numbers this year were down a little bit, according to the survey results and everything. But I guess the big question in California would be how did the wildfires impact?
Right.
And
right.
I think that if you can get around that and figure that out, then I think California is probably a state that you could find a lot of birds in.
You're listening to America Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Chad Love. He's the editor for Quail Forever Journal and a member of Quail Forever. Let's talk a little bit about the state of quail in our United States. You take a look at pheasant, and pheasant numbers have really declined in a lot of states due to agricultural practices and habitat loss. Quail seem to be a lot more adaptable than pheasant are. How are quail doing by and large in our nation?
Well, they could be better.
Sure.
It all goes back to habitat. And in a large part of the country, specifically I'm thinking primarily of the southeast, the traditional habitat that you found bobwhite quail in is largely gone. And in the Midwest, it's a little bit better. There's still large tracts of habitat, suitable habitat for quail in the Midwestern states and in the Great Plains states. So I think the quail are doing as well as they can right now, but they can always use a little bit of help, and that's obviously what our organization does.
Right, and that's the perfect segue into what Quail Forever does. Obviously, you've been impacted by not being able to do fundraisers, just like every other conservation organization does. But when you do get money, what sort of work do you do on the ground and otherwise to help quail?
Well, we have a lot of programs that we do. Probably one of our biggest is our Farm Bill Biologist program, where we have biologists who give advice to and help out landowners who want to bring quail back to their property or improve their habitat. And so that's basically what our organization is all about. That's why they call us the Habitat Organization, is that boots on the ground programs for either improving or creating habitat for our 6 native quail species. And I would say that that's probably one of the biggest things. About 70% of our entire expenditures is habitat development. And, we also have public awareness and education and outreach and things like that. But habitat development is the largest component of our mission statement.
Well, I think when it comes to quail, that's a great way to spend money. Same goes for most of the wildlife we want to conserve in America these days. Last but not least, the Quail Forever Journal. If folks join Quail Forever, they're going to get this journal. How many times a year do they get it, and what are they going to find inside the pages?
Well, if you become a Quail Forever member, you do get the Quail Forever Journal, and I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think it's the best upland hunting magazine out there. And it's published 5 times a year, so you'll get 4 regular issues of the Quail Forever Journal, and then you'll get the Upland Super Bird Hunting issue, and that's a special issue that goes out to both Quail Forever and Pheasants Forever members, and it's just all hunting. And so it's but the journal is full of not only habitat stories, it sort of highlights what we do as an organization, but also it sort of celebrates the upland lifestyle and quail hunting culture, bird dogs, upland hunting, cooking. Yeah, so you get the magazine and you kind of get the whole picture.
I love that whole picture that goes with the upland bird hunting experience. Folks, if you want to make a difference, consider joining Quail Forever. Their website is quailforever.org, and when you do, you will get 5 copies of the Quail Forever Journal delivered to your doorstep, or at least to your mailbox, every year. Chad Love is the editor. He's doing a great job there. And Chad, thanks for taking the time to share all of this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Well, thanks for having me.
Looking for the perfect gift for the hunter or shooter in your life? Give them a Henry. These American-made lever-action guns shoot straight and have a classic Western look. Choose from a .22 caliber Henry for plinking, a heavier caliber for hunting, or even a shotgun for birds and small game. Better still, these guns come in all sorts of finishes, covering everything from use in the field or on the range to showing off the best-looking firearm in your zip code. Henry rifles and shotguns come with a lifetime guarantee. And if you help need deciding what Henry is right for you, just ask. The award-winning customer service team at henryusa.com will be happy to help you out. So, go to henryusa.com and order a free catalog and holiday gift guide. Then, find what you like, look for a dealer near you, and get a gift that will put a real smile on someone's face this holiday season. Start searching for your Henry now at henryusa.com. That's henryusa.com.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. We've got one of my favorite guests on the line, hailing from the great state of Idaho, Ron Spomer, that outdoors writer, photographer, and television host who's making a little bit of time for us today during this Christmas season. Ron, Merry Christmas.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you, John.
Ron, I've been kind of following what you've been up to lately, and it's been quite a bit, considering the fact that it's been one heck of a weird year for us. And I thought I'd just kind of catch our listeners up with some of your recent adventures. And the first one I want to share with them is one you actually went on, I believe it was last fall. You went down to a winery in California, did some wine tasting, but before you did, you actually went on a deer hunt at the winery.
Yeah, that's the place where you can have your wine and eat your venison, too.
Wow. Tell us more.
Well, there was this unique winery over there in that Pozos Robles area. I think that's how you pronounce it. And the family has long appreciated hunting. Grandpa hunted and Dad hunted and all this. And they've got this winery in blacktail country, and most vineyards do not allow deer. They put up high fences to keep the deer out because they damage the vines and stuff.
Sure.
So you end up with a lot of country devoid of native wildlife. Well, that didn't set well with these hunters. So they decided they would manage the population of deer on their winery so that they could tolerate the bit of damage that they did and not overdo it, still make a living growing their grapes and such, but also keep the deer. So it's really kind of a nice story about learning to live with wildlife and using it sustainably. So the Mossberg Rifle Company, a good friend of mine is a marketing person there. Linda invited me and a couple of other writers to go on this winery and hunt black-tailed deer. So the unusual habitat, of course, is line after line of grapevines with a little channel. You know what they look like. So your deer are all in the rows or up underneath those vines. So you walk and look down the row, glass up and down it, go to the next one. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then the fun thing is you find your deer and shoot him, and they, of course, know what the grapes are in that line. So if you're in a Shiraz line or a Cabernet or whatever, that's the wine that you celebrate with that night at dinner.
Oh, that sounds like a ton of fun. Do you remember the name of the winery?
Steinbeck Winery. The Grapes of Wrath.
Yes, indeed. Oh, what a fun trip. Well, let's fast forward to this fall. You took a road trip. I saw some pheasants in terms of photos on Facebook. You were in South Dakota. You were in a couple of other states too, weren't you?
Yeah, I kind of make it my Plains State annual circle tour. So I zipped into Nebraska, and Browning invited me to a hunting camp. They had some new products they wanted to showcase, and wow, that was fun. And Nebraska is always a great place to deer hunt. You can hunt whitetails or mule deer, and I had a whitetail tag, and we went out and looked up in the sand hills. Most people will go into the river bottoms to look for whitetails for obvious reasons, but I think most of them don't realize there are a lot of these big bucks that get way back into the sand hills to hide out, and that's where I like to go look for them. So the guide and I did that. Justin was just a great guy, really knew the country. So we glass and stalked just like you would for mule deer and found a beautiful old buck. I estimated him at 6.5 years old.
Wow.
And he gross scored 162. He just had a lot of junk and tines everywhere with good mass to him, and it was just a really fun hunt in beautiful country.
Oh, that sounds absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so that's Nebraska. Let's move on to Kansas. What happened there?
Well, before we get to Kansas, we're going to zip through South Dakota because that's right next door.
That's fair.
And the Kansas season wasn't open yet. So I went up to South Dakota to my old stomping grounds for pheasants, and I really got shortchanged for the first time in a long time. Usually by mid-November, you've got snow on the ground and all the corn has been harvested and the pheasants are concentrated.
Right.
Well, this year they got so much summer rain there that the grasses grew huge and tall everywhere. So you got all these CRP fields, and a lot of them are called CREP, Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program fields that you can hunt. They're privately owned, but you're free to go hunt in there. So it really makes it easy. And we stomped and walked, and the pheasants laughed at us and ran around, and the dogs would point, and the pheasant wouldn't be there, and we just couldn't round them up like we usually did. So we'd pick up 3 or 4 a day, a couple of us hunting together.
That's tough.
And then we had to get smart. I said, Brad, we've got to get smart and outsmart these birds. So what we did was hunted in sort of a circle around an area with some dense cover in the middle, and we scared all the birds to that area and then cut through the center of that. And that's where all the roosters were. And then we got our limits that time.
Ah, well, nobody will ever call you bird-brained, Ron. Way to go. Way to figure that out. So
well, they sure do, but maybe they'll quit.
What part of South Dakota were you hunting?
We were in the southeast. It's not the most famous of all the areas to hunt, but south of Mitchell, west of Yankton, kind of where the Missouri River makes its bend from going south more east along the Nebraska border. There's just all kinds of places in South Dakota where you can do this stuff. They've got so much good public land there, game management areas and waterfowl protection areas. I always tell folks, if you love to hunt pheasants and you don't like to knock on doors and try to get permission or pay a trespass fee, South Dakota has a lot of great places to do that. A bunch of public land.
I might have to go back myself next year after hearing that. Folks, you're listening to America Outdoors Radio. We're talking to Ron Spomer about some of his recent exploits in the field. And we just talked about South Dakota, Nebraska. Now, let's head to Kansas. Were you deer hunting again?
Yes, I went down. I took my dog down because she was hunting with me, and a friend of mine runs Standing Stone Kennels near Hutchinson, Kansas, and he agreed to take Covey and fine-tune her, make her really shine. She was pointing pretty nicely, but only retrieving her birds about halfway and spitting them out. You know, the kind of typical dog stuff you often get.
Yes.
And he said, man, we can fix that. So I said, here's your challenge. Teach an old dog new tricks. She's not that old, 2.5, but she's really coming into her own. And I thought, I don't want to waste this dog's potential. I'm not the world's greatest dog trainer, and I've always wanted a perfectly trained dog. So he is going to do that, and he's going to produce videos that showcase how he's progressing with her. So I'm really looking forward to the whole thing. Standing Stone Kennels, if you want to look him up, Google it. He's really done great work with his German Shorthair, so we'll see what he can do with a setter.
Okay. So was the Kansas trip just about dropping off the dog, or was there more to it than that?
No, mainly it was about the deer hunt. So after I dropped the dog off, I went to my buddy's place and prepared for the deer hunt. And that was also on public land, believe it or not. Kansas does not have much, but they've got some walk-in areas. And if you're persistent and have pretty good endurance, you just check those places out. Do a lot of glassing, a lot of walking. Some of it's not very good deer habitat, but some of it can be. But if you put in the time, you can often find a pretty good buck. Now, last year, I got a really good heavy buck out of there that I was pretty tickled with. This year, I was a little worn down from all the pheasant stomping because we've been doing 7 to 10 miles a day on those. I just didn't feel like walking that many miles every day for deer, so I shortened it up to about 5 or 6 miles a day down there in Kansas. And on the second day, I had a really good run-in with a buck. I saw him at a long distance coming into a draw, and I headed over there, and then I caught him coming back out of that draw, but he wouldn't expose his body. I could just see antlers moving through the grass. So I paralleled him, hoping he'd step up, and he didn't. And then he disappeared, and it occurred to me that he may have just bedded.
Right.
He was by some little bushes and stuff. So I sat down and I grunted at him. And here he came, walking right up to me, head up, just ears forward. He was looking, and I let him come to 35 yards, and then I took him.
Oh, my God. Were you hunting with a bow?
No.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I had enough gun, as they say, a 7mm Remington Magnum. I was all ready for this long shot across the plains and the open fields in Kansas, and here I grunted him in within 35 yards.
Oh, incredible. Didn't even get to talk about what's going on the home front in Idaho. We'll have to save that for another time because we are out of time. But, folks, if you want to find out more about what Ron Spomer's up to, go to his website. You'll find it at Ron Spomer. That's SPOMER Outdoors.com. RonSpomerOutdoors.com. Not only will you find articles there and some videos, but you've got a podcast too, which I'm going to start calling Storytime with Ron because it's a little bit different podcast.
Yeah, it sure is. I read old magazine articles from way back. I just dig through the old boxes here and find something that I wrote back in the 80s or even the 70s and 90s and then read it. And then we'll talk about it a little bit afterwards and just say, my wife will jump in a lot of times and say, man, I remember those days, or gosh, can you believe how things have changed since then?
It's RonSpomerOutdoors.com. Check out his podcast and keep up on one of the most iconic outdoors communicators here in North America. Ron, always a pleasure. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, sir.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, John, and the same to you.
By the way, this portion of the show is brought to you by our friends at WorkSharp. They're the ones that make those fantastic knife and tool sharpeners that you can use in the kitchen, you can use in the field, or you can use in the shop. And if you want one heck of a deal, I've got one for you. Go to WorkSharpTools.com, go shopping online, and when you check out, use the coupon code RADIO, because once you type in RADIO as a coupon code, you will instantly get 30% off your entire order, plus free shipping. I told you it was a deal. The code again is RADIO, and the website to shop at is WorkSharpTools.com for WorkSharp.
Our American spirit is alive and strong, and while we're all going through these unprecedented historical times, we can face these challenges together. Hello, I'm Mark Hemstreet, owner of Shiloh Inns. Although we may wear face masks and practice social distancing, there are no restrictions on making travel memories for business or pleasure. Taking care of our Shiloh guests and employees is the very essence of what we do. At Shiloh Inns, we're open and ready to welcome you to a clean, safe home away from home. You'll find extra cleaning and sanitizing protocols in place for the safety of our guests and employees. At Shiloh Inns, we offer many free amenities like free Wi-Fi, and even the kids stay free. So book your next stay with confidence at ShilohInns.com or call 1-800-222-2244. Shiloh Inns, affordable excellence, American family-owned and proud of it.
Attention homeowners, spending more time around your house means you're putting more stress on major appliances that keep your home running. Like many Americans, a major breakdown could be very costly during these uncertain times. AC unit goes, that's $4,500. Water heater breaks, $1,500. When you own a home, it's always something. If you have a home warranty, those repairs could cost you nothing. A Home Service Club warranty pays for the repair or replacement of your home appliances and systems when they break down, even from normal wear and tear. For about $1 a day, you can cover your home appliances and systems. It's not a question of if they'll break down, it's when. If you call now, you'll get your first month free and $75 off your first year. Make home appliance repairs one less thing to worry about. Call 800-259-1604 now for your free quote, free first month, and $75 off your first year. 800-259-1604 now. That's 800-259-1604. Again, 800-259-1604.
You are not a mistake. God created you for a great purpose. Imagine those words spoken to a boy's heart where abandonment issues, guilt, and loneliness reside. Fathers in the Field works with the local church to reach these boys through outdoor adventure, service, acceptance, and forgiveness. To find out how your passion for God and the outdoors intersects with a boy's life, please visit fathersinthefield.com.
Next up on America Outdoors Radio, we've got a big conservation win to tell you about. Congress has sent the DriftNet Modernization Act to President Trump's desk for signature, and this means a lot to our fisheries, especially in the Pacific Coast. With us here to tell you more about it is Danielle Cloutier. She is the Pacific Fisheries Policy Director for the American Sport Fishing Association. Danielle, Merry Christmas. Welcome to the show.
Merry Christmas, y'all. Happy holidays.
The U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate have gotten together to pass this bill. It's on President Trump's desk. I'm assuming he's going to sign it. What does this act do?
This act will begin to help the California drift gillnet fishery transition to more sustainable gear. So this bill in and of itself only pertains to the swordfish fishery off the coast of California. So some of your listeners might be wondering, does this drift net fishery impact Columbia drift gillnet fishing or some fisheries off the coast of Alaska? And the answer is no. This only impacts California. This is a fishery that has more bycatch than all fisheries on the West Coast combined. So when we say bycatch, that's unintentional catch. So for this fishery, because it's off the coast of California, we're talking things like whales, dolphins, turtles. I always tell folks when I talk about this legislation, I do not encourage you to Google drift gillnet fishery, but if you really want to, go ahead and you'll see exactly why we're excited to transition this fishery away from this gear. So this bill, yes, it did pass the House of Representatives last week and much earlier in the summer, the Senate. So it does head to the president's desk. He has about 10 days to sign the bill. So we're very excited. This is something that the American Sport Fishing Association and the whole conservation community nationally, but primarily on the West Coast, has been working on for far longer than I've been alive. So we're very excited about this one.
Why don't you explain to our listeners a little bit more about exactly what one of these large mesh drift gill nets are? I understand they can be like a mile long, and are they basically anchored on the surface by buoys or between boats, or how do they exactly work, and how do they catch not only swordfish but everything else?
Sure. So yeah, it's kind of like how you described. So if you can imagine sometimes multiple mile long nets, they're made for catching swordfish, but they catch everything. They would catch a human pretty much if they were in their wake as well. So like I said, they catch swordfish. That's what they're used for primarily, but anything that comes in their wake. So whales, dolphins, turtles. And for the sport fishing community, we're concerned about those things as well because we're the original conservationists, but we also do care a lot about some big game fish on the West Coast. So things like marlin, we have been really impacted by these kind of gear. And it's a shame because there is alternative gear that's available to these fishermen. And many of them that still exist out there in the water are going to start transitioning to more targeted gear types, things with a hook rather than a net. And they've been shown to have up to 98% success rate in terms of decreasing bycatch. So very excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So we're essentially talking about transitioning from gill netting to log lining. Is that the method that's going to have to be used by these anglers now?
So the gear type that's going to be transitioned primarily is called deep set buoy gear. So if you can imagine essentially a line with a hook that is on a buoy, and the second that something is hooked, a pinger goes off. So a lot of times it's a flag. So they're actively tended gear. So the second that a flag goes off, the fisherman can go over to the gear and see, is it a swordfish? Is it not a swordfish? The vast majority of the time in testing, it has been shown to be swordfish. And if not, if, for instance, I think there was one turtle in testing that was accidentally caught, they can release it alive. So because unlike large mesh gill nets, they let these, mile-long nets soak out overnight. By the time that they get to them the next day, most of the unintended catch is deceased, unfortunately. So with this new gear, they can release them alive. So not only does it actually bring in higher quality fish for the fishermen themselves because they can get the swordfish on ice much quicker, they can release any unintended catch almost in real time.
This sounds like a fantastic bill. I'm really glad that this is passed and is going to be signed into law soon. There's another part of this, though, we should talk about, and this involves both commercial anglers and charter fishermen and the people who fish on charters in Alaska. It has to do with halibut. Tell us more about this part of the act.
Sure, thanks for bringing that up. Yes, there is a fishery in Alaska that has long been trying to have a catch share program between the commercial fishery and the charter fishery. So this bill has a provision in it that would provide a mechanism by which the charter fleet can buy quota from the commercial guys and have entry into the halibut fishery where previously that was not allowed. So this provision, while not directly related to the California drift gillnet fishery, it does very much support the recreational fishing industry by allowing them to have entry into a fishery that previously they did not. So a lot of our partners up in Alaska have been working on this issue for many, many years and are very excited that this kind of closes the loop on that project that they've been working on. And it's a win-win for everyone around, both, within the recreational fishery and the commercial fishery as well.
Well, kudos to Senator Dan Sullivan in Alaska for helping push this part of the bill through. And, we work with an Alaskan lodge, Sportsman's Cove Lodge, at Prince of Wales Island near Ketchikan. And the way the owner, Captain Mac McCory, explained it to me is that basically when you book your trip, you can basically say, I want to bring some extra halibut home and pay for that halibut in advance. And then you get that halibut as an extra one that you normally wouldn't get through this program. Is that the way it works?
That is correct. That is how I believe it works. And, for that reason in and of itself, it's really going to stimulate the recreational fishing economy up in Alaska. And for folks that really haven't had access to that fishery before, it's very exciting.
Well, lots of folks love halibut, and I think a lot of folks are going to love this new law. So again, folks, It is the DriftNet Modernization and Bycatch Reduction Act passed by both Republicans and Democrats. Yes, they actually got together and passed this together. It's waiting for signature by the president. And one group that helped make this happen is the American Sport Fishing Association. They lobby for rules that are not only conservation-friendly, but angler-friendly too. Check out asafishing.org. That's the website to go to, asafishing.org. For the American Sport Fishing Association. Danielle, thanks for sharing this with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Christmas is just a few days away, and I hope you were smart enough to go to worksharptools.com in the last couple of weeks and pick up either a manual or electric knife sharpener for Christmas, or maybe the holiday bundle they were selling for a great price. Because if you did, and if you used the coupon code RADIO, you saved 30% off your entire order and got free shipping. And you can still use that coupon code till the end of the year. However, it is too late to ensure a Christmas time delivery. So if you want a Worksharp product, go to a sporting goods store near you or a hardware store. Worksharp knife sharpeners and tool sharpeners are found in all the major retailers. We're talking Sportsman's Warehouse, Cabela's, Bass Pro. We're talking Lowe's. You're going to find Worksharp products in these stores and others too. And I guarantee you, whether you're buying a knife and tool sharpener for the shop, or maybe for the kitchen, or maybe for the RV, or maybe for elk camp or deer camp, or just for somebody who needs to keep a pocket knife sharp, they're going to love this gift. Whether it's a stocking stuffer or one of the bigger gifts they get for Christmas, a little something from Worksharp will make somebody's season bright. Speaking of the Christmas season, we have got to go, and I do want to take this opportunity to wish you a very Merry Christmas. It has been a tough year. That is absolutely true, but things are going to get better in 2021. I am sure of it. After all, they can't get much more weird than they have in 2020. And as we continue to work our way towards Christmas, try to hold on to the things that we hold dear. Number one, remember the actual Christmas story and the reason we celebrate Christmas. It's the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ our Lord. And that's truly the reason for the season, but it's also a time to gather with family and friends. And those gatherings might not be the same this year because of COVID, but you can certainly reach out. Whether it's socially distanced or whether it's over the phone, be sure to tell your loved ones how much you love them, how much you treasure them, and how much you look forward to spending time with them in the future. And as for something to do on Christmas Day, well, personally, I always love to take a walk, preferably in the woods or in the fields or in a marsh, where I can really soak in the day and enjoy nature and enjoy wildlife too. I hope you're able to do something similar on Christmas and that you'll be blessed on this holiday and through the rest of this year. Because as we say every week, it is your country and you're outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it, not just during this Christmas season, but throughout 2021.